Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Just Talking About Sports. I'm Matthew.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Michael.
Ethan, what are we going to be doing today, good sir?
Just talking about sports.
Yes, sir. Week 12, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with another poll, the AP poll top 25, as we inch closer and closer to March Madness. And we're starting to see some teams take shape. A lot of interesting storylines in this AP poll. It was a wild week. So many teams fell to opponents who, by the way, are extremely lackluster. I mean, we had a lot of huge upsets this week, just ugly. We're going to start right here, right at the top, and we're actually going to talk about Gonzaga for once. Let's just do it. Gonzaga is number one, but they shouldn't be, and I'm going to explain right now why I think that is the case. Gonzaga is an excellent program. They are 18-0. They played BYU tonight, their second game of the season where they're not favored by double digits. Can that sink in for a second? Second game this season where they're not favored by double digits. Kansas, they were favored by 10.5, which is still quite impressive at the time that they were that. Were favored by more than 10 over West Virginia. Their only game where they weren't favored by more than 10 was Iowa. Their schedule had some big behemoths early on before the conference started. But they've had some slip-ups in recent weeks. They were down to Pacific and San Diego in back-to-back games at halftime. Not a pleasant look. Their conference is terrible. Apart from BYU, they have little to no competition. San Francisco's been one of their big conference dogs in the past few years. They're having a terrible off year. BYU is still BYU, but at the end of the day, they're not nearly as good as they were last year. So what's my point? My point is Baylor. Has anybody seen what Baylor is doing right now in one of the most loaded conferences, even though they just lost to the SEC in the Big 12, which I'm not going to talk about because I think it's terrible. But Baylor destroyed Texas, took down Auburn, took down Texas Tech. They beat Oklahoma State, pummeled them. They pummeled Oklahoma twice. They have dominated the Big 12, and they actually play competition every game. Unlike Gonzaga. Gonzaga is an unbelievable program. Congratulations on being unbeaten. But Baylor needs this credit at number one and not Gonzaga. And I'll leave you two to decide whether you agree or whether you don't. Ethan?
I think you bring up really good points. I mean, the Big 12 has been loaded compared to the Gonzaga conference. Gonzaga has not really played anybody in terms of ranked, and they're not going to the rest of the season. Where Baylor has had the Big 12 to deal with, which the Big 12 is looking like it's going to be just as good as the Big 10, which is actually surprising because usually the Big 10 is like the big behemoth and everybody else just kind of follows. But they've been actually literally kind of on the same level. And at the moment right now, they have the same amount of teams as the Big 10. So I think that like in terms of opponents that they've been playing, I think that Baylor does deserve to be ahead. I just think because of record-wise and because of consistent reasons, I think Gonzaga should still be number one until proven otherwise. There's got to be a reason why they're still beating these teams by like a lot of points. Like their last game that they had, yeah, they were down against Pacific. They still went out and still finished the game, and that proves that they were able to overcome these types of games. Yeah, it can be scary, like in times like when Baylor was down, but I still think that regardless of everything that has been going on, I think Gonzaga is the team. They're the team to beat, no matter like who it is. If Baylor goes out and continues to keep smacking the rest of these teams, give them like at least 2 more ranked wins against these teams, like, and solid wins. I'm talking solid wins. None of these like winning by 3 points. I'm talking about solid wins. Then you've got a little bit more of an argument. But until they really do prove themselves, I think Gonzaga should still be number one.
Yeah, I agree with Ethan completely. I think Baylor would be number one if they were able to play these games they have in their next few. Like they would be playing Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and West Virginia if they weren't stopped due to COVID. If they won those 3, now we're talking. But Gonzaga's been so good early in the season; they were just killing teams. And now it's like, yeah, they stopped playing for a half. It's just what they can do when you're playing Pacific. Yeah, let's just walk around like this, not really focus, and then we're down 2. All right, we'll be up by 10 in 2 minutes. If they just do that, it just happens. And Gonzaga's those are still the 2 top teams. I don't think anyone's disputing that. If Baylor goes out and wins the Big 12 tournament, I think there's an argument to put Baylor at 1, but hopefully Gonzaga can get another game scheduled. They wanted to play Nova, but Nova played a league game instead. And they wanted to play Houston, but Houston decided to play Our Lady of the Lake. Thanks, Houston. But I don't know. I just don't get it. But hopefully Gonzaga can get another ranked team on their schedule, get someone good on their schedule. But I think Gonzaga's proven enough right now. But unless Baylor has a couple really nice wins, I don't think anyone should top them.
Yeah, and the story here, and the thing we won't know until the championship, because I'm calling it right now, Gonzaga and Baylor would have played each other this season, early in the season. Let's not forget this.
The game.
Let's not forget this. That game has not only been postponed, it has now been canceled. It was announced today that game will not take place because Baylor has too many COVID issues, and they're going to try and fit in this Big Ten schedule. And this is a problem for Baylor. I'm going to head to two really quickly. Gonzaga, we're done. Baylor, really quickly. They are now going to have to play like 6 or 7 games in 14 days. This is going to be a problem for Baylor towards the end. So keep an eye out, especially with all their big programs. They're going to be at 2, though, until they lose. And even then, they might still be at number 2. Number 3, Michigan. We've talked about it. One of their players tested positive for the B117 COVID variant. They are on lockdown. The next game that they are going to play, hopefully, and there's already problems here, is Sunday. Would be their first game back in weeks. It would be against Wisconsin, which is a great time to play them because Wisconsin is awful. But good opportunity. Let's see if they can play. But I have my doubts. Number 4, Ohio State. Huge week for Ohio State. Are they now the kings of the Big Ten with Michigan out? That is the story we've seen. They're cruising right now. They've beaten Wisconsin last Saturday, and they just took down Iowa. And we'll talk about them in a second. Villanova goes down to St. John's, so they dropped to number 5. Still only 2 losses on the season, though, for Villanova, but the Big East is not the same beast it once was. We're going to stop right here, though, at number 6, because we have another Big Ten team that, oh, my goodness. Big Ten, we got 3 in the top 6. Ethan, talk about the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, I mean, this team was eventually going to find their way back up here. I mean, I would say they're the hottest team in the entire NCAA right now in terms of the top 25. But Ohio State has taken that reign so far, and that's the reason why they're at the number 4 spot. But Illinois has found a way to creep back into the top 25, and they found a way to finally get things clicking. I knew eventually at some point this team was going to be able to find a way to get it going again, because with the players that they have on their team, it's just unbelievable how they weren't able to be in the top 25 or be able in the top 10 for so long. Because when you got Ayo Dosunmu, 21.2 points per game he's averaging. And then you got guys like Coburn, who's just been making teams like IU, his dad or his father. I would like to say another word, but I can't. But I think this our Illinois team is finally figuring it out. They were supposed to play Michigan, like you said, but that would have been a game to decide if this Illinois team is really back or not. But they've got a little bit of an easier schedule. I think they don't play anybody until Wisconsin for like 2 weeks because they got the bottom half of the Big Ten, the rest of the schedule. But I think this Illini team is back, in my opinion. We'll see if they can continue going on. But with now that they're back, I think they're deserving of it. This team is unbelievably stacked, and there's no reason they should be below the top 10 unless they find another way to choke against a bad team.
Yeah, when you look at Illinois, the problems with them early in the season were Coburn's just slow. It's hard for him to guard quicker players on the perimeter, and he wasn't great in the ball screens. That was the real problem. But Io's getting it going recently. I mean, he just had a triple-double the other day. And it was like a 20, 12, and 12. I mean, Io's ridiculous. This team's really good. They got weapons around him. Duke Coburn, as you said. Adam Miller's coming in, getting buckets. Trent Frazier's still there. They got a good freshman class. I mean, this is a really good team. You knew they were going to get it together. They're one of the most talented teams. I mean, the Big Ten's got 3 really good teams up top, and then there's a pretty big gap, I think. Get more into that later. But, I mean, yeah, Illinois is really good, plain and simple.
I don't have anything else to say there. I think Illinois has proven. We said at the beginning of the season that I think Dosunmu and Cockburn coming back was a huge victory for them. And I think the big notice here is that Dosunmu passed up on going into the NBA to play another season in Illinois because he knew that may have been his only chance in March Madness that was blown away last year. So he came back and said, you know what, I want to maybe try this again. Without him, this team would be nowhere close to where they are right now. So credit to him. We'll move on. Number 7, Texas Tech. Texas Tech's cruising. And by the way, we have like no teams coming up in the next 10, so we're going to speed run. Texas Tech having a huge job in the Big 12. If Baylor isn't number 1, which they are, then Texas Tech is the clear number 2 in the Big 12. Number 8, Houston. How do you lose to East Carolina? That's a story, but we're not going to get into that story because they beat Our Lady, as Michael just greatly put. Yay! Yeah, nobody cares they fell 3. Virginia up to number 9. Hey, maybe this team's got something in the tank. I don't think so. But tough test coming up. Georgia Tech starting to play really well in the ACC. Keep an eye out for them as they continue to pick up some steam. That's their next game, but it's a pretty quiet week apart from that for Virginia. Missouri. The SEC is different every week. I'm telling you. And now Missouri is back in the top spot. They held on. They were up like 20 at half against Alabama on Saturday. Nearly absolutely choked it. But they held on. Missouri jumps 8 after a huge week. They also beat Kentucky. But apparently we're giving teams credit for that now for some reason. Alabama dropped again. Alabama not looking so hot. Let's see if they can pick things up. Like to say a week ago, I called Oklahoma losing on Monday, and guess what? They lost. So Oklahoma's at number 12. We're going to briefly talk Texas. Each person gets like 10 seconds. Texas is looking really bad. They've lost 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5. Michael, what do you think the problem is?
They had a decent amount of guys hurt and guys out to COVID, and Smart didn't coach a game. I mean, they're long, they're athletic. I think they'll be fine, but they're not great shooting the ball, but I think they'll be fine.
Ethan?
Yeah. I think that every team has their losing streak, and right now Texas is having it. It's good to get it out of the way now. They'll be back in it though. I think with the talent that they have in this team, I think they'll find a way to get back in it later in the rest of the season.
Yeah, the only problem is you play in the Big 12. I'm with you, but I think that their schedule looks so brutal here coming up that they might be in trouble. Speaking of the Big 12, this is the 3rd straight Big 12 team. West Virginia, they are the definition of a roller coaster ride. You have no idea what's going on with West Virginia. Just be wary if they're a 4 seed, pick the 13. Is anybody going Iowa? Because my brain is not clicking.
Yep, I've got Iowa. I got a lot to talk about Iowa.
I'm going to let you go. Number 15. Go for it.
Yeah. So this team, everyone knows they can score. Garza's amazing. And outside, you got guards who can really shoot it. Bohannon, Wieskamp, they can shoot it. They can great for themselves and everything. The best team in the country offensively, according to Ken Pom. But their defense, they can't guard anyone. I think if you threw out 5 random dudes on our campus right now at Butler, I mean, these guys we could probably score 70 on them. They can't guard anybody. They're 121st in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency. That's worse than the Big Ten. They're the worst Big Ten team defensively. They can't guard anybody. So when you're like, you can't count on this team. Like, you know, they can score with anybody. They can score on anybody. They can put up 100 on any given night. But that one day in the tournament, if they're not shooting very well and they're playing a 12 seed who can hit shots, like a Furman who I'm watching right now, they're going to lose that game. They can't guard anybody. So this team, oh my God. You'd think they'd at least get a little better defensively just because everyone returned. Didn't happen. They got worse. They regressed on that end. It's awful. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
This is a stunning decline for Iowa. We thought they were one of the best in the country, but their defense, when you're worse than Nebraska, it's time to call 911. Yeah. Sorry, Nebraska. Ethan, anything?
When you get swept by a team like IU, just when you're trying to finally give a compliment towards Iowa, who's they look like they could be such a great team. Offensively, they're so much fun to watch. It's just a pain watching them on defense. And it's literally kind of like watching an NBA team. Their offenses are such fire-powered that all of a sudden people forget about their defense, and all of a sudden they give up 100 points and more. And that's kind of the same thing with Iowa when you go up against teams when they're not very great defensively. And if Iowa doesn't shoot good one game, boom, they're out of it, because that's the only thing they rely on to win games. And that's what's been happening. So, I mean, there's so much to like about this team offensively, but defensively, not fun to discuss.
Yeah, I still can't believe we're talking about Iowa as a number 15 team. Rutgers is going to get their chance on Wednesday to prove that they belong in here, and Michael will talk more later on that. We'll move on to number 16, Tennessee. I do not like the move down 5. Yeah, you lost a close game to Ole Miss. It's a tough loss, but I don't think it warranted a drop of 5, and I don't know if you guys agree with that. I just think that's a terrible move on their part, but I digress. Florida State's at number 16. They're up 3. It's Florida State. They're the ACC team. Their next few games postponed. They're on and off for me. I have no idea. Virginia Tech, they lost to somebody. They lost to Pittsburgh. That's right. Okay. When you lose to Pittsburgh, you're already in trouble. That's a tough loss for Virginia Tech. We'll see if they can bounce back. We're moving on here to number 19, Creighton. What's going on with the Big East, guys? You guys both go to Butler. What's happening?
We're imploding. Simple as that.
St. John's is apparently the only team in the Big East that knows how to play basketball, which is a problem. But Creighton's been terrible ever since past few weeks here. And finally, we got a team. Here's USC. Surprised they weren't in last week, I think. A lot of people of us were surprised they weren't in last week. And now they're in. And after a huge week for them, they just took down UCLA and took down Stanford. Ethan, what you got?
Yeah, when you got a player that is projected number 1 or number 2 overall, you're obviously going to have some success somewhere in the team. And it was only a matter of time before Evan Mobley got in. I mean, the dude has just been unbelievable for this team, averaging 16.3 points, 9 rebounds, and just absolutely lighting up for them. He's unbelievable. He's playing like getting comparisons to Shaq already, which I was confused about. But I got to start watching more of his play to see if that really is him. But I think this USC team is good as long as Evan Mobley's on the court. I mean, they're able to go and get big wins against UCLA and Stanford. I mean, they don't really have many issues all around. I mean, their 2 losses, I think, or 2 of their 3 losses have come to Colorado and Oregon State, but they're spread out enough where I think they're continuing to just be able to go on win streaks. And that's a good sign for a Pac-12 division or conference that's just been awful to watch all season long. So I think that maybe with these wins that they have, they're first in the Pac-12 right now. And the way that the rest of the Pac-12 has been playing, I think this team's really the only reliable team to bet on in terms of Pac-12. And that's maybe, we don't even know yet, because I could say that and then next week they can go in, or this week they can go and just lose 2 straight just like that, because that's how the Pac-12 has been all season. But we'll see. I think for now, as long as Evan Mobley's been lighting it up, I think this team's going to be able to stay ahead in the Pac-12. So we'll have to see though. Who knows?
I mean, look, they got a big win against UCLA, beating by like 20. UCLA put up 40 points? They played
48. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, geez, just elite defensively on that end. And the worry with Evan Mobley has always been, is he keeping that same motor? Is he playing hard every single game? And if he's going to take what game off against Oregon State, the guys, they might have enough, but like, as you said, they lost to them early in the season. But other than that, Evan Mobley's a beast. Like when he's on, just good luck. You're not stopping him. But like when we look into March, their guards, they've been good this year. They've been better than I thought they'd be. I'll give them credit. Taj Edey, Drew Peterson. I mean, they're doing pretty well. But again, in March, I don't know if I trust those two to do anything. But against a really weak Pac-12, they're more than enough.
USC is going to be your typical 6 seed. I'll say it now and I'll say it proud. They'll be your typical 6 seed against like a first 4, 11 seed. I don't know. The Pac-12 has been so bad this year that it's quite a shame that the Missouri Valley is almost as good as them. Yeah. The Missouri Valley almost being as good as them is where the problem stands. Can we get that clear? All right. Wisconsin is number 21. We didn't choose Wisconsin because, quite frankly, we all hate them and they suck anyway, so nobody cares. And I'm sorry to say that to Wisconsin, but you have a lot of talent and you're not using it properly. They got to get moving. I don't know what the problem is, but for some reason they can't win against the bottom feeders of the Big Ten, and that's a problem right now. We'll stop once again, and I'm proud to work this one. This is Loyola. Yeah, can you believe it? Loyola's here again. Number 22. Flashbacks to 2018. You already know the vibes. But to believe that Loyola is in a position like this again is stunning in so many ways. We all remember what 2018 was like. I've been alive. I've been watching this tournament for now 16, 17 years, and I actually haven't been watching for 16 years to get the point, though. I never saw a run or a team as accomplished as that get so dropped by the committee at 11 a couple of years ago. And now, once again, they're ranked and barely in the tournament right now, which is another problem to me. But Krutwig is still there for Loyola. Let's not forget that man is still fighting for Loyola. He's averaging 16 and 6. Their big man down low. He's been incredibly consistent. It's a shame that they don't have a lot of the players that they had back then, but they filled up the gaps. Got a good playmaker in Braden Norris at guard for Loyola. This team's got a lot of talent. And the big series this weekend against Drake on Saturday and Sunday. Talked about this before recording. This is a huge game for the Missouri Valley. These are two huge games. A sweep on either side for Loyola or for Drake will guarantee a March Madness spot no matter what happens down the line. This is a big series. Loyola's in the top 25 for the first time since 2018, and the rest is history. They moved on to the Final Four and nearly won the whole thing. Is this Loyola team for real, or is this going to be a team that maybe drops a little bit?
First off, before we even get all to the details, I'm just going to say this. So you were talking about the schedule in this weekend. All I have to say is, who needs Valentine's Day when you got Missouri Valley basketball? Because,
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
this is going to be absolutely amazing. And the legend of Sister Jean is now back in it, because Loyola's just when people thought that you'd start, they were just a Cinderella team. They get to the Final Four. You don't have to, they'll be forgotten, and everyone will never forget about them. Oh, wait. 2 years later, they're back in it, in the top 25 nonetheless. And they are playing very, very well. 10-game winning streak they have going into this. They are red hot in the Missouri Valley compared to a Drake team that just lost to Valpo, who Valpo is my now number one public enemy, because I was really hoping for Drake to be able to continue going on in their undefeated season. But you know what? Every team has their bad days, and that would just happen to be one of Drake's. So we'll see, though. This is going to be the game, I think, to watch this. And for us college basketball fans, it's going to be the game to watch, because even though there's only one team ranked and it's a 22 seed, it's not like a 1 versus 2 seed. I still think it's going to be super duper entertaining. And in terms of, will this Loyola team continue to keep going on? I think Loyola is hot enough where I think they will be able to, where Drake's having to come off a loss and try and figure out what they did wrong. And that's why I think Loyola might be able to take the first one. And then we'll see what will really happen in that second game on Valentine's Day. That'll be the big game to determine what will really happen in the Missouri Valley and the futures for both those teams. But I think the Ramblers are back. Cannot believe that they're in the top 25. Nonetheless, 22, getting more recognition than Drake. But I'm just going to enjoy it while it lasts. And we're just going to zip my mouth, not complain, and mark your calendars, and I'll be ready. I'll be ready.
Yeah, as Ethan said, who needs Valentine's Day when you have a 6'9" Cam Krutwig throwing bounce passes from the top of the key? I mean, who needs it? But yeah, as Loyola runs great offense. Cam Krutwig, they can go 5 out whenever they want. Cam Krutwig's a beautiful passer. He can shoot it a little bit, I think, from outside. Like, not consistently from 3, obviously, but like you give him an open midi, he might be able to hit it. So you do have to respect that. But that they run great offense. They're a good team. And I've been saying for weeks that I would take Loyola over Drake, especially in that first game. I'm not backing down now. I think this could be a decent bounce back for Drake to wake up against. I think Drake plays UNI in the middle of the week, if I remember correctly. One of them does, at least. I think that's a good bounce back spot. But Loyola's a great team. They've played some tough games. Like Richmond was a really good team early on in Kentucky, but that one didn't age as well, but still they're very good. They lost to Wisconsin on a game that was scheduled on short notice. It's not a bad loss at all. And they lost in conference to Indiana State. I think it's still, like, those aren't bad losses. It's still a good team, and I trust them completely. I think they'll be a fun team to watch in March.
I'm hoping that they get the recognition, because right now they're still barely in the tournament. The last thing I want to say here is, if they lose both games this weekend, I think their March Madness window closes without a conference championship. With that, we'll move on. Oklahoma State, which I can't believe they're below Loyola, but that's besides the point. Oklahoma State, 12-5, huge double overtime victory over Texas, but they caught Texas at a very good time, I will say. They lost a game this week. Let's not forget that they lost to TCU this week, but they still get in because they beat Texas. I don't have a problem with this. This is not like Louisville, where they beat Miami by 2, but lost a game they should have won, and then still got into the rankings. No, this is a team that got a double overtime victory over one of the best teams in the country. Well, was. So I don't have a problem with it. This one I have a problem with. Purdue is still in the rankings at 13-7. And just, they're still here, didn't move. They only have 85 votes, though, because you can clearly see the committee not a fan of this team anymore. It's an interesting dynamic. And then the final team in the rankings, we leave to our good friend Michael DeRosa. Rutgers is back, baby. Technically, maybe. You tell
Your
me.
family, your religion, Rutgers basketball. All you need. I mean, Rutgers has been really weird this year. Really weird. They won their first 6 games, including at Maryland, versus Syracuse, versus Illinois. Those aren't wins aside from Illinois, those aren't wins like you're going to brag about at the end of the season. Those are good wins. But then they lose 6 of their next 7. Ohio, they lost. Their only win in that time is Purdue. They lost to Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan State, Ohio State again, Wisconsin, and at Penn State. Some of those games Rutgers should take, and then they've won their last 4. So they've been really streaky this year. I think the Christmas break is definitely what got them. But now they're ready for basketball again. They're ready, and you know what? Rutgers deserves to make a tournament. They've gone too long, and last year was their year, and it got taken away from them. They deserve it. And hopefully they can take down Iowa. Rutgers deserves it. I like this team. I like Ron Harper. I like Theo Baker. Good guards. That step back Theo Baker has is still deadly. I like this team. And I want them to do well. I hope they stay in the rankings for the rest of the season, and I hope we get to watch them in March.
But they're going to lose to Iowa, so they'll be out next week. But I do appreciate the sentiment. Ethan.
I sadly I would have to agree. I mean, I love it, Rutgers. I really hope that they still find a way to sneak in. It's been way too long, as you said, and I love the players on this team, Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker. Like you're saying, I love watching those two play. It's just that this 4-game winning streak that they're on. I mean, besides Indiana, which does look like a good win now, they haven't really played anybody in those last 4 games, or even 5 games if you want to mention Penn State, which they did end up losing to. So I'll just keep it short. I think it's going to be a rough time against Iowa, although they're catching them at the right time when they're on the down low. But I think this Rutgers team, if they're going to find a way to try and really secure a spot like Indiana has, in my opinion, I think this Iowa game is make or break, and we'll see if they're able to keep it close. If they get blown out, they're done for. But if they keep it close or even win, I think this team's got a chance.
No team is done for in a conference tournament setting, but I do kind of agree with the sentiment. One team I do want to point out very quickly, and it is Big East Tide. How is Xavier not in these rankings at 11-2? Over Purdue, who has 7 losses, granted, much better conference. But how are they not in? Like, Xavier has not done anything to prove otherwise that they shouldn't be in. Their only losses have come to programs that at the time were ranked top 25. That is the last thing I did want to say. I think Xavier deserves to be in these, especially with Purdue still in these with 7 losses. You guys agree with me, right? They don't deserve it, do they? The 7 losses.
I like this Drake team. I mean, I like the Xavier team. Sorry, they're good. Too many pauses, though. I think that's why. People just haven't seen them yet. Once you realize how good this team is, I think they'll be ranked.
I would agree with that statement. And obviously Drake with 1 loss is not even close to the top 25, but back-to-back wins this weekend, they'll be in. So thank you guys. This was a fun one. There was a lot of good teams to talk about here. It's been a pleasure. Week 12. We've got a few more weeks left before March Madness. Until then, we'll be here just talking about sports. Have a good one, everybody. I don't have a hat to tip, but here's the imaginary.